I'm Matthew Hadley, student number 442170, and this is my multimedia project. The approach I took for this video was the idea that the whole video and the whole sequence is a memory of the narrator. I believe this fits well with the still image of the video, as it is all how the narrator remembers it and what he was seeing as he was walking through the building and back out again. The sound would be recreated as how it would sound throughout the building, what he would be hearing as he was walking through the building and seeing the things that are on screen. This would be done by using things such as gunshots, smashing glass, atmospheric sounds, sirens, alarms, as well as movement sounds such as wind and Doppler effects. The first thing I recorded towards this project was atmospheric background noise that would be played throughout the whole project. This would be used to ensure that there was no silence at all throughout the project, and was recorded simply by setting up a microphone and recording the room noise, and then after the noise was recorded, the audio was normalized. In effect, we get atmospheric, simple plain background noise which gives the viewer the feeling that we are outside, and then when we go from being outside to being inside, the audio changes. This was done by simply pitching down the audio as well as making it a little bit quieter, and then bringing in this audio as the camera goes to the inside. And then towards the end of the project, when the camera goes back outside, the outside atmosphere audio is reintroduced. The next thing to be recorded was a gunshot sound, which is prominent throughout the whole project. This was recorded by simply recording a door handle, which can be heard here. This door handle was then bit crushed and repeated, which gave the sound of a gunshot, which can be heard here. This audio was also pitch shift to make it sound more realistic, space designed, which is a reverb plugin, which was used to add some distance and space to the gunshots. The Doppler plugin was then added. This plugin is used to create some sort of direction within the audio. It does this by pitching and panning the audio depending on where it's coming from. So as you can see, as it's far away, it's quiet and panned to one side. As it gets closer, the pitch comes up, the panning comes more central, and it gets louder. And then as it gets further away, it gets quieter and slightly lower pitch and pan to the other side. This is an effect known as the Doppler effect. Next sound required was an explosion sound, which occurs twice throughout the project. This was done by recording various different sounds and layering them on top of each other. The first sound to be recorded was the crushing of a fizzy drinks can, which can be heard unaffected just here. After this was recorded, it was then sent to a reverb bus EQ'd and pitch shift down by 24 cents. The resulting sound sounds like this. Now on top of that, more layers were required, so also recorded was a door being shut. This was sent to a reverb bus as well as being EQ'd, and before all this it sounded like this. So adding all the effects back on, it sounds like this. It was stated by epicsounds.com that a lion's roar with flange can beef up an explosion sound. So a lion's roar sound was downloaded from the internet and added to the explosion with a flanger. Before the flange and the reverb bus, the lion's roar sounded something like this. And after the flange and the reverb bus, the lion's roar sounded something like this. So, with the layered explosion sound and the lion's roar, the explosion sounded something like this. Usually, after an explosion, there is a ringing out. This is usually the ringing out, a high pitch ringing out in someone's ears. This was recreated using the ES2 synthesizer within Logic, and is simply a high pitch sine wave with slight distortion, and this can be heard after the explosion, and it sounds something like this. So this is the ringing out just here, and that fades in and fades back out again. There is a point in this video which can be seen just here, where you can see the smashing of a glass. Now although this smashing is still in time, the sound of smashing glass is still required. Now to achieve the sound of smashing glass, I recorded the sound of a set of keys rattling about in a glass cup, which can be heard here, as well as here. On top of that, I added the sound of coins rattling about in the glass as well as the keys, and this sounded something like this, with also another slight added reverb. All this together sounded like this. Now although that sounds okay, it didn't sound quite big enough, so I bounced that down as one audio file and then laid it on top of each other, and it achieved a sound something like this. You can hear that also some of the audio files are time stretched. Now because this is in one moment in time, I wanted to achieve some sort of movement within the audio. So before the main blast of the glass smashing, I placed in the same audio file but reversed and also slightly time stretched. This gives an almost build up to the glass smashing. So altogether, it sounds something like this. The last thing I'd like to mention about my project is this channel right here. This was used to suggest some form of movement from the narrator's perspective, and was done simply by a noise oscillator and a filter. This filter rises up every time there is a sudden movement from the camera, and it sounds something like this. So you can hear almost the movement of the camera in the wind or in the outdoor space, and this is consistent throughout the whole video. Every time there is a sharp or sudden or faster movement, the filter just rises up and then filters back down again. And it happens both inside and outside of the video. Just adds a slight movement and perspective from the narrator's point of view. To conclude my video, I believe it is done to a fairly professional standard, although some work is still needed. As all the sounds sound realistic, I believe it would work as a project. However, if more time was spent on it, more sounds could be found and it could become a fuller, more satisfying project. As some parts at the minute there are no sound and it can sound a bit empty in places. So if more time was to be spent on it, I would spend time filling these spaces of sound to achieve a more professionally standard submission. All in all, I'm happy with it. I think it provides a clear image of how I intended it to. It feels as though all the sounds are what they're meant to sound like and coming from where they're meant to be coming from. And everything is in the right place.